and welcome to UC Today. My name is Kieran Devlin, and today's session we are exploring how technology can help foster a collaborative and productive hybrid work culture. I am delighted to be joined by Joel Mulpeter, Director of Product Marketing at Crestron, and Brad Hintze, EVP of Global Marketing at Crestron. Brad and Joel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us on, Kieran.
Yeah, thank you, Kieran.
Before we explore a bit about today's topic, could both of you introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about your Crestron journeys? Brad, let's start with yourself.
Yeah, so I've been at Crestron for 5 years and spent a lot of time working with our product teams, our sales teams, our customers, and our dealers to better understand what it is that they're looking for in the modern work kind of setup. And, the best way both Crestron fits in, but also, the broader set of challenges that they face every day. And so, I've been heavily involved in all of those areas my whole time here at Crestron. And, and it's always very exciting. It's always lots of fun.
Awesome. And my name's Joel Mulpeter, Senior Director of Product Marketing. So, I spent almost 18 years at Crestron so far. But had the lovely privilege of working in our Sydney office, Singapore, and now based out of the US, quite often in a product-based role of some kind, doing either system design through to, today doing product marketing, but quite often working with our product teams from ideation through to when we launch the products and making sure we're, hitting all the right points, working with our customers to work out exactly what we need to make to solve real world problems, and then, bring those to market.
Terrific. Well, that is an extensive amount of Crestron experience, and both of you guys are well positioned to discuss the transition that happened 5 years ago now, which was, of course, the explosion around the world of hybrid work as the new normal. It has become permanent, but many organizations are still finding their cultural rhythm, even if there's technology to enable that. From Crestron's perspective, how can technology genuinely help nurture company culture in this new world of work?
Well, I think that, we spend a lot of time looking at technology from two sides, right? In terms of, understanding what it is that our customers are trying to solve for, right? Today's IT managers are getting requests from a broad part of the business to say, you need to enable all of our spaces to be able to have remote conversations. People need to be well represented in those conversations, and it needs to just get out of the way and enable people to get their work done. And, I think that over the last 5 years, certainly the expectations of those that are going into the office or those that are trying to hold a meeting have been continually increasing, right? Whether that is driven by, increases in the quality and, the pervasiveness of consumer technologies, or, the ways that collaboration technologies have really rapidly evolved in an individual context, right? On your mobile phone, on your own laptop. And so those expectations are brought into a meeting room, and we need to find ways to meet those. And I think that, we're in a good position to be able to do that. And technology plays such an integral role in the way people are represented, the way they can or can't contribute in a meeting. And so, I think that we have this great kind of convergence of these high expectations, this desire to enable this collaboration, and we have all the technology pieces to do so, right? It's just that they have to be designed well, and they have to be deployed to be able to meet some of these expectations.
And you've spoken before about technology as the interface for human connection, which I think a phrase I really, really like. What does that mean in practical terms for IT and AV leaders who are trying to make hybrid meetings more inclusive and human?
Yeah, I think today as we walk into a meeting room, we have all this technology around us, right? We're meeting with people, right? So we're engaging with people. Sometimes they're in the room, or quite often they're in the room these days, and then there's some remote element to that. But the technology is becoming the eyes and ears of that room, right? We're having those eyes come into the room to see what's happening, get a better understanding of what's happening, both for people from the far end, but also for, other tools to understand who's speaking, where and when, what they're doing. And then the ears in that room as well is obviously feeding into things like AI for transcription translation. It's going to the far end. And I think that's going to increase, right? We're going to see more of those eyes and ears play a more important part. If we reference things like facilitator in Microsoft Teams today, and how that plays into Teams rooms, it's a part of the meeting, right? It sits in the meeting and it pushes the meeting along and helps you keep on task. And it lets you know your meeting's almost ended. You need to cover this topic. It only does that because those eyes and ears are in that meeting and are able to hear and see what's going on. And I believe that agentic kind of approach of sitting in that meeting space and that meeting experience is going to continue. It can only continue with the technology that enables it to hear and see.
Well, and we talk a lot about if you think about, kind of creating this generalized checklist of what every space needs, right? From a technology perspective, and you focus on what is it that they're trying to accomplish. And so Joel was talking about the eyes and ears in every space. And if you boil it down to, in every meeting room, they need to be able to share content. Right. Whether you're sharing a PowerPoint presentation and it's only you in the meeting room, right? Or you're trying to watch content from elsewhere, or you need to be able to share that content really easily. And that can be as simple as plug in an adapter, right? A USB-C cable, right? Or a wireless USB-C adapter, and content just goes where it needs to go, right? That's one. And so does every space have the ability to easily share content? Does every space have the ability to easily bring in a remote participant? Back to that eyes and ears conversation, right? So is there a camera? Is there a speaker? Now you have to drill down and say, is that the right camera for the space? Is it the right set of speakers and microphone for the space, right? That's super important, but that's a crucial element of collaboration. Can you walk in at the drop of a hat and dial in, whether it's a partner, whether it's a remote employee, right? Whether it's a customer, right? You need that ability to be able to do that. And then the third element is, can you walk into any space? Can anyone walk into any space and use it because it is so simple and easy to use? And so for a lot of IT users, if you can go in and start asking those questions and finding answers to those, that will naturally lead you to the right technology solution. And it meets a lot of the needs of that space. Even though, every space, the way you deploy that might look slightly different, these basic needs are still always true.
And underpinning a lot of the development in recent years is that two-letter acronym that will always be on the first of everybody's lips, but it is absolutely essential to empowering the type of environment you guys are talking about. That is, of course, AI. And intelligent audio and multi-camera systems are being called the foundation for AI-powered collaboration tools. How do you guys see that relationship evolving?
Yeah, do you want to take that, Joel?
Sure. As we look at AI in the meeting space, right, we have AI that's being applied, assisting meetings today with translations, transcriptions, right, all those kind of things that are happening because we had a meeting. That could be happening in a room. It could be happening from a desktop experience as well, right? As we move into taking those AI experiences and expanding them in the meeting room context, it certainly can get a little bit trickier as to how you make that AI effective for many people, right? Understanding who's speaking where, right? That's an important aspect to know who's actually in the room, who's remote. And when you have that group of the room, it's one audio source. Knowing who's speaking can be a tricky thing. And the larger the rooms get, the harder. It doesn't certainly get any easier. But also then applying the right AI to sit inside the video suite as well, right? And understand that the AI that's sitting in those devices, it's helping making that meeting experience better for the participants in the room, but better also for the remote end. Is a mix of AI, right? There's AI that sits on the client side, right, on Teams, Zoom, whatever your platform of choice is. There's also an element of AI that sits in the hardware as well, right? So that edge AI versus cloud AI approach as well. So, when we talk multi-camera, there's quite often edge AI being processed in that, right? We're trying to understand where people are in the room. We're trying to make decisions based on where they're looking in the room, where they're standing in the room. And we want to make sure we always capture them in the best angle and the best view. So that remote experience feels like they're in the room. And that, to be honest, is done better at the edge most of the time, right? There's certain times that can be done in the cloud, but there's always going to be a balance of that cloud AI and edge AI story And today we're using a lot of cloud AI, translation, transcription, the right place to do it. As we move into things that are more latent dependent and we need to make sure they happen instantly, those are better done at the edge. And as we start to bring more, AI capability certainly into cameras, multi-camera audio, all those things, we're also going to see an increase of AI in the compute sitting in the room as well, and start to leverage that mix of AI, cloud and edge, and also the various devices and NPUs sitting in the room to drive those better experiences.
Yeah, and I think that the other area that we're really excited about too is where we're already seeing the benefits of AI improving a particular solution, as Joel talked about, right? That combination of edge AI and cloud AI to bring things like intelligent video, framing the active speaker, intelligent audio, reducing noise, beaming the microphone towards that active participant and understanding where they are in the room. All of those are benefits that are becoming clear in the solution itself. We think that too, we'll also start to see more and more leveraging of AI approaches and technologies to make it simpler to deploy technology, right? And then also to support that. And so those are areas that I think we'll see continued investment in and improvement. We're certainly making a lot of investments in there, and we're really excited about what that means, because that ultimately means that IT managers can get systems and solutions up and running faster. They're more robust. It's easier to manage, right? They have more and more demands on them than they have ever had before. And so, we're looking at really exciting ways to apply this technology, not just within the solutions, but also within the tools that enable our pros to get a lot more done as well.
And the other thing was interesting in that is, in underpinning a lot of our conversations with IT and AV leaders at UC today, is this idea that their role is transitioning from merely managing uptime, which will continue to be very important naturally, but a new factor to consider is the element of building trust and retention with their colleagues through technology. How does Crestron help them succeed in that new mandate? Brad, will we start with yourself?
Yeah, so in terms of building trust between collaborating, right, between your colleagues, there's several elements to that. Is one, the technology just has to work, right? There's no more frustrating way to start a meeting than when you walk into the room and it's not working, right? And so that destroys that trust, not in a you're a bad person, but it destroys that trust in that, hey, I know I can walk into this meeting, I can go right into a really productive and effective conversation with you without the technology getting in the way. So that is certainly one of them. The second that is really important in terms of developing that trust is how well are they represented, right? We already know there's starting to be more and more empirical data that shows that the quality of the AV system that someone is using in a meeting impacts the way that you are perceived, right? And those that have high quality AV are perceived as more convincing, right? More trustworthy. And those that have a low quality AV, they're less convincing, less credible, right? And so when you put a colleague in that situation where they are brilliant, they have a lot to offer, but they're in a room with tin can audio and a bowling alley camera view, right? You're not putting your colleague in the best position to be able to have a productive and effective conversation. And so trust really comes down to, does it work? Is it the right solution for the space so that people are represented well? And when you can address those challenges, then the technology really does get out of the way and you get right into that effective collaboration.
And I think for a number of our customers, right, when we deploy as a technologist, it's sometimes hard for me to say, but we want the technology to effectively disappear, right? For most people that walk into a meeting room, they're not worried about what the camera is doing or how it's operating. They're not worried whether the audio sounds good or bad. They just want to walk in and meet. If they're education, they just want to walk in and teach, right? They don't want to worry about, setting it up and making all that work. It should be seamless. And I think that's, the current day goal is to get those happy smiley faces as people exit the meeting rooms to say, I just had a meeting, the old,
Yep.
as you walk through the airport and ask you whether that was a good experience checking in this time, and you hit the smiley face. That's what we want as the outcome of meetings. I want people to say, "Yep, that was great," every single time. The technology enables that, but it should be transparent to the people in the room. They just go in and meet, they exit, move on with the rest of their day. For the majority of the people that use our technology.
No, entirely. And I think that really underlines the point of the interface for collaboration, which, again, I think is such a neat and concise phrase which captures it so succinctly. One final question for you guys before I let you go. Joe, we'll start with yourself. Can you share an example, big or small, that captures how the right meeting experience can shape companies' culture? Something that makes the technology feel personal.
Yeah, I think every company has a various range of workflows that suit different people and different departments. And I'll even go as far as saying different cultures globally, right? Customers don't have one office quite often in one location. They have multiple, and some of those across the globe. That experience of walking into a meeting space has to match what that person intends to do in that room. If they're a trainer, they need a certain function set. If they're working in HR and simply want to have a meeting with one remote employee, that needs a different function set, right? That workflow of the space is super important. And then we can extend that, obviously, across departments to across regions in the one country, then to across globally, right? There are certain global nuances that do change the way meetings happen. And there are certain nuances that happen across a country as well, right? Different cultures across a country. So making sure that, again, that seamlessness extends to me as an employee. I want to use the space to achieve a certain outcome because that's what I do every day when I come in the office. I teach, I train, I meet with people, I share content, whatever that is. I need my space to match to that. And understanding that workflow, breaking down exactly how to do that across multi-department can be, a challenge, but it's definitely possible. And documenting that, understanding that, and then achieving that with the meeting space is really what I believe the goal is for all these spaces.
For me, I think a really poignant example of how technology can enable that collaboration actually happened, as we started to, transition back into the office in this hybrid model more and more. And the reality is we'll always be hybrid, and we were before because, we're a global company. We have employees all over, right? But one of the things that we saw was I got into a meeting room, and I have 3 or 4 people in the meeting room, and we have a remote participant. And my natural inclination was to look at the people across the table from me and talk to them. And then I forgot that people were on the call, remotely. And you had to remember, because trying to be a good corporate citizen, trying to be a good colleague, you want to include them in that conversation. So you have to remember to turn your neck and look down the end of the meeting room at the display. And so we saw immediately that challenge of balancing wanting to be a good corporate citizen with also the typical human nature of looking the people you're speaking to in the eye, right? To have that kind of a collaboration. And this pushed us to this concept that we introduced a couple of years ago called Sightline. And that leveraged technology to address, that human nature. I want to look at the people, face to face. I'm in a meeting room, for heaven's sake, right? I want to look at them and have that kind of human connection with those that are in the room. But I also want to keep those that are remote in the conversation also. And so having the displays around the room enable that really natural kind of collaboration. And it wasn't just like a pitch, right? It wasn't a marketing pitch. It was visceral. And the first time I held a meeting in that room, I really sensed that difference, and it made a tremendous impact on our ability to have a discussion in a really productive meeting too. So that was kind of a personal experience of leveraging that technology to better engage, a team that is distributed and, in person.
Terrific. Yeah, no, I think that's 2 excellent examples illustrating exactly what we're talking about today. But unfortunately, that is the time for today. But it's been a terrific session. So thank you to Joe and Brad for being here. And if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share on social media. And we'll see you next time. I've been Kieran Devlin of UC Today. Thanks for watching.